Hi, my name is Alicia. I am the long-term care coordinator for Otsego County, New York Connects and Office for the Aging. Today's weekly Wednesday presentation is on scams and financial exploitation. Our presenters are Angela D. Dominicus, a New York Connects caseworker here at Office for the Aging, and Rebecca Bradley, the EMDT coordinator for the Financial Exploitation Multidisciplinary Team. Becky works for Action for Older Persons. Angela will be the first presenter today. Go ahead. Unmute yourself.
All right, good afternoon. Again, I'm Angela D. Dominicus. I'm going to tell you a little bit about SCAMS. To start off, I started doing the SCAMS thing when I first started working for Office for the Aging. I took a big interest in it, so I started doing some research to find out what kind of scams were out there. We were receiving lots of calls, so I really wanted to be involved in researching this and seeing what we could do to help our individuals that call. So our objectives today, we're going to talk about what type of scams are out there, what to do if you feel like you have fallen victim to a scam, who do scams target, what financial exploitation is, signs and actions to be aware of to identify financial exploitation, and who to contact regarding scams or financial exploitation concerns. Let me get this down here. All right. A little bit of statistics. It's 1 in 5 individuals in the US is age 60 plus. That is 20% of our US population. 1 in 20 older adults indicate recent financial mistreatment. Only 1 in 44 older adults reports their financial. Approximately 9% of older adults who were financially exploited turn to Medicaid after their funds are all stolen. In some cases, the exploitation of their funds causes problems for Medicaid eligibility in the future. A little background on that: if a person were to apply for Medicaid and go into a nursing home, they would do a 5-year look back. They will want to see proof of any large withdrawals and purchases. So say if you were scammed out of $5,000 and it shows on your bank statements, they will want verification that that money was used for yourself and not gifted or just given away in order to qualify for Medicaid. And proof of a scam would be hard to show. Why do scammers target older adults? Well, over 30% of older adults state that they would rather die than go into a nursing home. This is an avenue scammers and persons exploiting money used to get older adults to give them money. And then the care of their loved ones and not wanting them harmed is another fear. The fatalities of aging, the dependence of others, and isolation itself. The first scam we're going to talk about is the Social Security scam. This is constant and harassing phone calls similar to the fake IRS calls from criminals impersonating Social Security Administration officials. This is the ability, they have the ability to spoof caller IDs to make it look like a legitimate call from Social Security. So they can make the number look like Social Security's number without you knowing about it. Sample of the demands or threats that they use. They want you to pay for a new Medicare card by putting hundreds of dollars on a gift card. And there is no charge at all for replacement cards. And they do not include your do not include your Social Security number. Your Social Security number is going to be canceled. You will lose your Social Security benefits unless you verify information. Asking for information to get bigger Social Security checks, and your Social Security number has been compromised. That's a big one lately. I've had numerous adults that I've spoken to get that call, and I myself have been getting that call right there where they tell me that my Social Security number has been compromised. Do not provide your Social Security number to anyone over the phone. Social Security payments will not be canceled or increased if you do not verify your information over the phone. And if you are suspicious Call Social Security directly and do not talk to the person on the phone. And there's the Social Security number if needed. Now we're going to talk about the gift card scam. This is where callers pretend to represent a federal or state agency. They call about fictitious debt and demand payment in the form of a prepaid gift card or risk punishment. You should hang up immediately and notify your local law enforcement agency. Never read or text someone the PIN number on the back of the gift card. This number is as good as cash and in scammers' pocket, and that'd be great. Reputable businesses do not ask for prepaid gift cards as payments. Always treat your gift cards like cash and protect them as you would your wallet. And only purchase gift cards from reputable and well-known businesses. And charitable giving scams. You don't assume that charity recommendations on social media platforms or blogs have been vetted or verified. There's a lot of scams on social media these days. My spouse recently was scammed out of something he thought looked legitimate and ended up getting a little tiny wallet worth maybe 5 cents in the mail instead of getting the actual thing he had paid for. You need to research your charity yourself. You need to find out what percentage of your donation will go to the charity and whether you will be charged any fees for making a donation through the online platform. You will need to check to see if the charity is registered with the New York Attorney General's Charities Bureau. Websites posing as charities can oftentimes look identical to the real site. So always look for that little padlock or the HTTPS before the web address. Avoid being pressured to make an immediate donation. Do not hesitate to ask questions and get more information or even call back. If you did not initiate the contact, avoid giving personal information, including financial information like bank account or credit card numbers. Never write a check to a person. Always write it to the charity directly. And watch out for charities through the mail. I know the elderly tend to receive a lot of mail for donations and charities. At times they ask for small donations, other times large. So they usually get you with those small donation ones. They can be very convincing, but the truth is all they have to do is not dot the I on Alzheimer's or just change up the font just a tad bit to trick you into thinking that it's the real thing. The best thing to do is to go directly to the charity in person, or if you're possible, or do your research and find a legitimate way to donate to the charity that interests you. The grandparent scam. This is another one that I hear a lot as well. Individuals call and impersonate a loved one who appears to be in some sort of trouble and needs money. Often these calls come at odd hours and a time of day where older adults are disoriented, such as early in the morning or late at night, though not always. These seem legitimate, but these con artists have taken a lot of time to know family members and connections. They do their research on social media platforms, online searches. If you've ever done a background check on somebody, it could pull up numerous family members' names under that person if you're doing the background check, even if you weren't to pay for it. In some cases, the scammer impersonates a police officer or a lawyer or a doctor calling on the behalf of your loved one. They want money sent immediately because this person is supposedly in jail or in trouble. And they tell the caller, what you can do is you can tell the caller you will call them back after you check into the situation. Do not ever send money, and you want to verify with your family members that this is true. So you could call your son, daughter, niece, nephew, or even your grandchild directly to see if they're okay. I just recently had a individual call our office. The first time she said her grandson supposedly called her and they were able to get $5,000 from her. They had her go to the local post office and have a money order filled out, and then they also told her not to put a name on it. And she fell for it and sent it out. When they found that this happened, next thing you know, within a week or two, she got a call from a supposed judge, and they requested $7,000 because the grandchild was in trouble, and she was told to leave it on the porch and that somebody would be coming to pick it up. This individual then contacted law enforcement, and the authorities had her leave the home, and they put the bag on the porch, and luckily they were able to catch the perpetrator. The perpetrator did not speak any English and was wanted by ICE, so he was deported, but they were unable to trace the initial contact of what had happened. So it's very rare that they actually can catch the scammer themselves or even trace it back to anybody that's initially doing all this. It's sent all over the world. It could be anywhere that it's bouncing off of phones and such. The medical device scam. These are robocalls come through offering free medical devices. When you answer the phone, it prompts you to press 1 to receive a free device. Pressing 1 gets you through to a live person who in turn pressures you to provide your personal information, such as your name, address, phone number, credit card information. If you press 2, you opt out of future calls. But honestly, when you press 2, you're just alerting the scammers to a working number, and it allows them to know that they can use this number again in the future. Any call like this that seems too good to be true probably is, so hang up immediately. It's your best bet. The IRS scams. These are scammers calling impersonating the IRS. The IRS is the Internal Revenue Service. They collect your taxes. They tell the person on the phone that they are going to be arrested for overdue taxes. They ask for bank account information or credit card numbers to satisfy the debt. They may ask you for a wire transfer. Many times it's difficult to determine if it's the real IRS call. However, the IRS will send a notice via the mail prior to any attempts to actually contact the taxpayer by phone. IRS typically does not demand immediate payment, and hang up and call back a reputable number off the IRS website or the phone book, and there's the number for the IRS there, if you were to look into that. All right. Other scams, there's the free grant scams for colleges and getting into colleges. There's New York State Department of Motor Vehicle scams. There's fake accident or arrest scams, sweepstakes and lottery. The same lady with the grandparent scam that I just told you about ended up having the Publishers Clearinghouse told her that she had to pay money to claim her winnings. And of course, she went right to Walmart, put $2,500 on gift cards, came back home, called the number they gave her, and she gave them the numbers on the back of the card. So she lost $2,500 to that scam. If you won some sort of lottery or sweepstakes, they would be able to take the monies right out of your winnings. There's also the mail fraud and email internet fraud, which things pop up on your computer, so it's best to just protect your computer with different kind of programs and such for that. There's the home improvement scams. Somebody comes to your door. They do chimney cleaning, driveway repair, or paving. They do home repairs. A lot of times they'll come right to your door to try to scam you. There's the shopping and computer related scams, which you see is another thing a lot on the social media. You find this beautiful shirt you see and you want to get it, and it ends up coming from China and you don't get anything at all, or you get something you did not order. Debt consolidation scams, where they tell you if you have all your debt, we can get it all together in one little thing and make the payments less, or in the end you might end up with even more debt. And then of course there's the romance scams. And I had spoken to an individual at one point in time whose friend had been scammed by this. He fell in love with this person overseas or wherever it was. And in the end, the person wanted the money to be able to move and get here, and they needed the plane tickets. So they sent the individual a ton of money, and then the communication was completely lost after that. Tips to prevent scams. Ignore letters, TV, and radio ads pitching a 50% reduction in debt. These organizations often charge large fees up front that will only add to your debt problems. Never give personal information over the phone, internet, or to strangers. Do not share PIN numbers. Be careful when using a credit card online. Make sure it's a reputable website and it's secure. Again, with the padlock and the HTTPS will be in the beginning of the web address. Beware of contractors who go door to door. Like I said, they want the money up front. It's likely a scam. It's always best to get additional estimates from other local companies. Any requests for wire or cash transfers should be discussed with someone you trust, a family member, pastor, close friend. It may be embarrassing to you in the end if you were scammed, but the best thing to do before you make any kind of decision like that is to talk to somebody about it, see if it's legitimate, really work with someone else with that. Hang up the phone without pushing a key for unsolicited phone calls. Install firewalls and antivirus spyware on your computer. That's what's going to help you with those pop-up scams that come on your computer. Do not open attachments from strangers or any emails that are suspicious. Social Security, that's one of the big ones that happened just recently, was they were emailing Social Security scam, and it was very legitimate looking. Scammers are now using sophisticated technology to manipulate their phone numbers, making it look like they're local on your caller ID. You could have someone, if you're from Oneonta, it looks like an Oneonta phone number and ends up being a scam. When you call that number back, it ends up being somebody's personal phone number, but they're using their numbers to get through to you. It is very difficult to know all the scams out there. Every day, you're finding out there's more and more scams. And the best way to defend yourself and be aware is to be aware of the tactics of the scammers and use that the scammers use, and to keep your personal information safe. So don't give anything, nothing, no personal information over the phone, and you should be a lot better. Well, okay. So what to do? You should get onto the do not call registry list. Now, mind you, this is not foolproof. It doesn't block every number out there, but it can help. And you'd want to call from each phone number, your home phone and your cell phone and your work phone. You have to call from each one to get each number onto the do not call registry. Don't be afraid or embarrassed to talk about it. Waiting could make it worse. So like I said, if you feel like you've been scammed, talk to your family. There may be possibly a way to put a hold on your credit card or something like that before something, they actually take it out. You don't know, it's best to not wait, just do right as you think about it. So if you think you have been scammed, you should contact your bank and credit card companies immediately. Cancel any credit card or debit cards linked to the stolen account. Reset your PIN numbers. Call police and file a report. And then contact your credit reporting agencies and place a hold on your card. That's what you would do if you didn't already cancel it. Sometimes it's just best to cancel it. Credit card companies will send you a new card, new numbers. If you put a hold on it, you may end up activating it again at some point because it got mixed up with other cards, and then they would have access to that number again, possibly. And then you could always contact Office for the Aging. We talk about scams a lot through our office, so they could always direct you to me or my supervisor. She also knows a lot about the scams. But that's it. I'd like to thank everyone. I'm going to hand it over to Rebecca Bradley now to tell you a little bit more about the financial exploitation. Thanks.
Thank you. So hi, my name is Becky and I work at Action for Older Persons, and we are located in Vestal, New York. But I am the coordinator of something that's called EMDT, and EMDT stands for Enhanced Multidisciplinary Teams. So what we do in these teams, it's a collaborative throughout each county, and I control 5 counties. So that's Broome, Delaware, Shenango, Tioga, and Otsego counties. And we basically get together and we start discussing cases of exploitation. And the exploitation can be across the board. It could be something that's happening as a scam, like Angela had discussed. It could be a sweetheart scam. It could be someone who pretended to be a long-term friend and lives elsewhere but needs financial assistance. Or it could be someone that is very local, okay? So what we're seeing a lot of in the cases that I'm looking at are cases of individuals that are being scammed by a family member or a caregiver or a very close friend. So what happens in my cases are people will contact me that are professionals and say that, you know, I'm working with this individual and they've told me that they believe that they're being exploited. Someone else has access to their finances, and that is because they may have given them that permission to have the access. So they might have given them power of attorney or put them jointly on their account. Now, I will let you know, if you put someone jointly on your bank accounts, it is very hard to say that you didn't allow them to use this money for that purpose, because essentially any money that's in that account, whether it's, you know, only your money going in, they will consider it jointly everybody who's on that account's money, and it's hard to get them for exploitation. So if you are apprehensive or you don't trust fully the person that wants to be jointly on your account, I think that should be the first red flag. And you should not allow that person to be on your account. If you are questioning the motives of someone that's on your account, please remove them immediately. You should never be uncomfortable with the thought of anybody being involved in your account or on your account if you're comfortable with them. So if you're not comfortable with them, they shouldn't be a part of it, because it doesn't make sense. And don't worry about, say, hurting someone's feelings, because everyone's feelings can be hurt. But, you know, feelings repair over time. Money, when it's gone, and you will not be able to get that specific chunk of money back, because there's no way to get restitution on something that was actually, in the eyes of the court, in the eyes of financial institutions, theirs as well. Okay. But power of attorney is a different thing. And we used to jokingly call it the license to steal. But what power of attorney has is very, very specific verbiage. And that verbiage says that the person who has power of attorney is sworn to act in the best interest of the individual. So if we, as my team, can prove that that individual did not act in the best interest, now we have an argument. But we need the tools, right? So what does it mean to kind of investigate this? Well, we start working with the individual, who we do refer to as a victim, because that's what they are. it's elder abuse, it's financial exploitation. And it doesn't just have to be financial exploitation. There are co-occurring abuses that happen with exploitation. So you've got emotional abuse, there's verbal, there's physical, there can be sexual, and all of these can happen at the same time. So having the team together allows for different people to come in and assist with those different parts of abuse. So if we have financial exploitation, but there's domestic violence as well, we might partner and bring in a domestic violence expert to work and get them through the process of not only beginning to heal, but learning the process and the steps of how to separate themselves from that dangerous individual. And then to also maybe get a temporary order of protection if need be, what the process would be for separating themselves from that individual. And also it's just someone who is going to listen and hear where you're coming from and know the direction that might be best for you, instead of you blindly walking out into the world, not knowing what's next. Okay. So like I said, when the case comes to me, I evaluate it, and then I begin asking important questions. And those questions can be, how long do we think that this has been occurring? How long do we think someone has had access? And what's the spending habits prior to this? So, if you traditionally were only paying for, say, your mortgage, your rent, your groceries, your cost of prescriptions, things like that, there's going to be a history of that within your banking records. And then when this person becomes involved, or shortly thereafter, or over a period of time, we start seeing money disappearing from the account at a rate that never occurred before, in sums that never occurred before. That's where we start seeing our little flags, and we start taking notes of those dates. And if need be, we contact the banks. Okay, so now we're in partnership with the bank that you're working with, and they can get us all of the back data that we need. We can ask them for it. Now, they don't necessarily always want to give it to us. Sometimes we do have to talk with the district attorneys in the various counties and have them submit subpoenas to get some of that information. And if need be, that's what we do. We'll get that information set, and we begin evaluating that to try to build a pattern, to show a case, and to do a breakdown to show what's going on in these people's accounts. Okay. It might be something as simple as, we're seeing multiple ATM withdrawals, but you realize that you only have one account or one card. So how are there multiple ATM withdrawals when you weren't using it? Well, your power of attorney might have went and got another card, which as a power of attorney, they're entitled to do because they can act on your account without your consent, that you've given them that consent with the power of attorney. Okay. So that might be something that we need to issue immediately to the bank as a hold on that card, freeze that card. Okay. We also have access to legal aid services, and legal aid services can assist with revocations of power of attorneys and establishing a new one. So, if you realize, unfortunately, a son, daughter, grandchild, close family friend, caregiver has been taking advantage of you financially, we can have that person removed from that role, and we can work with you to find who might be a better alternative to have someone assist you with your finances. Or it could have been a situation where you had a power of attorney in place when you were sick. We've had cases where individuals were battling, say, cancer, extremely weak, unable to get out to pay their bills, to do this and that, really needed to focus on the process of healing versus, the day-to-day. So they had someone, take responsibility for it for them in the power of attorney, and then they just never revoked it. So, years go by, this person still has power of attorney, and unbeknownst to this individual, might have been accessing their account, might have been spending from their account. So you may not need a power of attorney anymore. So just revoking it and not establishing a new one might be what you want to do. And there are so many different nuances to what you can do and, what you might want to consider doing down the line. And that's something that the attorney would be able to work through with the victim. And that doesn't come at a cost to the victim. That is something that we have contracts with, so that amount of time is taken care of through the EMDT. We also work with local law enforcement. We work with sheriff. I had said the DA's office. We also have access to a forensic accountant, and the forensic accountant actually takes all of the data, all of the statements, all of the bills, all of the notes, everything that I as a coordinator can compile, and I write a referral document up, and I submit everything all at once to them. And then they find a way to break it down where anybody else looking at it would just look like a normal banking spreadsheet. It would just look like, okay, so I just, everything seems fine. Nothing seems out of the norm. I mean, there's a couple fluctuating numbers, but I can't really see the difference. But in actuality, a forensic accountant could show where someone was able over a period of 5 years to funnel thousands of dollars through different accounts, because people aren't stealing money because they're stupid. They're stealing it because they're smart and they know how to do it. Okay, so if we can stop the bleed, if we can get the person away from the other individual who's taking the money or who's being victimized, that is the priority. We do not want to keep them together any longer than possible. Now, the other side of that coin is, it could be someone's daughter, it could be, a close friend, it could be a family member, a caregiver, a spouse, it could be anyone abusing that individual, and they may refuse any help that we're providing them, because the bank could be the one that found the exploitation. The bank is the one that notified, me as an EMDT coordinator, or notified, anybody else, and the individual absolutely refuses to take any help because they might not think that the exploitation is something to be concerned about, or they don't want to get that individual in trouble, which we do understand. And at that time, all the team can really do is say, we understand, and these are the tools, and here's everything that you would need to try to correct, things for yourself moving forward. You might need to run a full credit check on yourself. You might need to cancel your accounts and open new ones. You're going to need to cancel your cards. And here's how you do all that. And they may not do it because, again, it's family and they're embarrassed. No one wants to admit that someone that close to them that they cared that much for was able to do that for them, to do that to them. And I completely understand, not wanting to have that feeling, but also to admit that it's happening. It can be embarrassing, and the same goes with being scammed by an outsider. You have given all of your energy into an individual that you thought cared just as much for you as you did for them. And now you're finding out that all of that was fake. It's not a great feeling. And, to have others find it out and to say, well, here are the things that we can do to try to fix what happened. Your emotions shouldn't have to be a problem that needs to be fixed, and your finances shouldn't have been a main piece of it, but unfortunately that's the way it was. And again, it's very embarrassing, and it does have some trauma to it, and people will process it in their own way, and sometimes it might be to pretend it didn't happen, or to just say, well, I learned, and walk away. We will always try to give everyone the tools that they need to try to better themselves exiting out of that situation. But sometimes people just want to pretend like it didn't happen, or they just say, well, then I deserved it. And that's not the case. No one deserves to have their savings taken from them. No one deserves to be deceived. And if we can find a way to assist people through that, we will. And sometimes the people that are exploited don't have the ability to understand what is happening to them. They don't know that the person that they had trusted is exploiting money out of their account. And it could be because they don't even recognize finances, money in general. They might have dementia, they might have Alzheimer's. And so this person has open access to every facet of their financial life. They're able to approve spending. They're able to approve nursing home placement. They're able to approve pretty much anything that they would need, but they're also able to just kind of spend if they want, because no one's calling it into question. When it starts to come into question, usually, is when people start to realize that they are not going to be eligible for, say, nursing home placement because they don't have the finances, and they're not eligible for Medicaid because during the look back, large sums of money went missing. You can spend your money, but if you spend large sums of money and then you need to go on Medicaid, they're going to ask you why. So if you're gifting thousands and thousands of dollars, that's going to come back later. and it's going to be something that they're going to flag. And you might end up with a spend down, you might be denied, and then you have a whole nother list of issues. But if someone has dementia, they're not able to say, well, I said that, you know, I gave this away, or I never said they could do that. So that's when we have to look at it from a different lens. That's when we have to investigate it without the benefit of having the voice of the victim telling us what to do, telling us how they felt through that. So we have to figure it out through the numbers. We have to figure it out through the patterns, and we have to figure it out with statements taken by law enforcement, by neighbors, you know, APS workers. So it really does, it takes a while to run these cases because we want to make sure that they're comprehensive, and also that people that were actually doing what they were supposed to do for that individual are not being blamed for something that they didn't do. So if it's a case where, you know, it's a he said, she said with the family, and maybe the family thinks that somebody's doing something, but we can see that this individual was just purely taking care of mom or dad, then we will say that as well, okay? Because just because someone says there's exploitation doesn't always mean that there is. It can just be someone wanted a piece of that pie as well, and they felt, well, if I'm not getting anything right now, it must be because of X, Y, and Z. My most important thing to say to people is that no matter what, if you are, you know that you're in line for an inheritance, that money is never yours until that person is gone. You're not, you know, it's not for you, it's for them. It's still their money. And I know that a lot of people say, well, I don't want to spend it because it's for my kids. You will need to spend what you need to spend to have quality of life, and to also make sure that you are in a position to keep yourself safe, healthy, and happy, okay? So if that means spending through money that you set aside for your children, that is completely appropriate. That's spending for you because it's yours. You worked for that, you earned that, you saved that. And whatever's left, if there's anything left, then so be it. But as the other side of the coin, you know, it's not their money to take. It's not somebody's money to expect to have, so you can't spend this money because that's going to be mine. Because I don't think people realize what you're saying. Like, no, your money is my money, but you're just not dead yet. And that's honestly what you're saying to that individual. So we have to think about it from that point of view, because some people just don't, and they just talk about their inheritance in front of an individual who's still alive. It's like celebratory money because someone's gone. And it kind of stings when you think about it. So I think we have to kind of pay attention to the way we look at finances when it comes to our older population, and make sure that, you know, they understand that it's okay to keep their money and to spend their money on themselves, and that it is theirs for a reason. So, you know, sometimes people don't realize if they are in charge of someone's money that they could go and say, oh, you know, I fell a little behind in a bill, so I'm just gonna take it out of mom's real quick, you know, $200, but I'll put it right back. But then maybe you don't. And then you're like, well, she would have let me have that anyways. And then you realize, well, it was just easier to do it that way, or I didn't go to the bank in time. I'll just pay it out of here. And then it starts to become a pattern where you're just used to spending this money, okay? Or you think that because of power of attorney, you should be being reimbursed. There's no reimbursement for this, okay? So you're not someone that's going to be reimbursed to be a power of attorney. You're not gonna get, if you are a power of attorney for someone who is in another state and you're coming to visit them, they're not gonna put tires on your car and get you an oil change before you get here. That's not part of the process for you to come and do things for them. So it has to be very clear. When you agree to be someone's power of attorney, it's very important that you know what that means. If it's something that you feel uncomfortable with, then you shouldn't take on the responsibility, because you may be called into question. And there are things like demand for accounting. And if there's a demand for an accounting, you have to give a complete list of all of the receipts and expenditures that you have done for that individual. You can't commingle funds, you can't do any of that. And it starts to get a little sticky when people don't pay attention or keep strict records. So we just always make sure everybody kind of understands what they're getting into with the power of attorney, but also what could happen if you step outside of the rules of a power of attorney. And, you know, one of the common things that people will say is like, oh, well, mom and dad are confused. Well, there's many levels of cognition. So saying that they're confused doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to get your story heard more than theirs, because they have rights, they have the ability to tell you about their spending and what they do or don't want. And in the end, it will come down to potentially what the authorities and the DA's office think might have happened there. And, you know, it could be an issue where, you know, the individual is charged, you know, and there could be restitution. You don't hear a lot of that in the news. And that is because these cases go so long, because there's so many pieces to it, and people think it's very easy. Kind of like when they hear like APS, they just assume that people come in and just remove the elder out of the home. And that isn't the case. You know, that's not how those things work. It takes a lot of effort and a lot of work to prove a case of someone who is older, because they're an adult and they may have chosen poorly, and it's their right to do that. And just because we don't like it doesn't mean it's not okay for them. It's just something that they might have chosen. So it's kind of making sure that that isn't the situation that's happening here, but also making sure all of the pieces come together. And the downfall of that is, you know, we are dealing with an older population, so they might begin to start showing confusion. They might become sick. We've had a victim pass away in the middle of an investigation, and we needed her voice on that stand, and the case unfortunately died with her. And it becomes a lot, you know, and you don't hear like, oh, this person's going to pay back hundreds of thousands of dollars, because we might not have got to that point, you know. And if you know, you don't hear about big jail times, because it might be an agreement of, you know, they can go out on probation and pay restitution over a period of time, but if they fall behind, then they go to jail. So it's these little things that come into play where you don't hear these large sweeping cases. They exist, absolutely exist. There's prosecution. We've had an arrest recently in a different county. You know, we have another one pending, and it's all happening, but it's not like big and showy, I guess is the best way to put it. Sometimes I want it to be, because I want people to know that we're coming for them. We want people to know that this is something that exists, but you know, this is something that is through the professional referrals in the background. And it's just, there's so many different moving parts and so many different offices, but some things will take precedence over another, and cases do get bumped. So that's why, another reason why they take so long. So there's a lot to exploitation cases and what can happen. But the entire center of it will always remain the victim and the victim's concerns and stories and best interests. And we will make sure that that individual has what they need to try to navigate forward. And if that person isn't speaking for themselves, then whoever the direct representative is, or getting them the appropriate representative. Okay, so if that's something that we have to do, then that's what we'll work to do. So that's pretty much what I have for me on that. I didn't see any questions pop up, so I think we're good.
Does anybody have any questions? I'm not getting any questions. So that will conclude our presentation for today. Thank you to Angela and Becky for presenting today. And if you have any questions, you can always reach out to Office for the Aging or New York Connects, and we will get those questions answered for you. All right. Thank you, everyone.